Hey, everybody. So first off, I want to welcome you guys to BDCRX. Our objective here on this podcast is to talk more about BDC, talk more about the car dealership world. Obviously, we're excited to have our guest today, Jason. Jason is a veteran of the dealership world. He's a guy who's done almost everything in the dealership world you would want to do, starting as a sales guy, elevating into leadership in a store. He's played a little role in the dealership, outside of the dealership, and we're excited to learn everything to learn from you here today, Jason. So first off, how's your day going?
Yeah, it's going awesome. Started off playing a little football with the kids, so it's a good day off, and then get to wrap with you guys, talk a little biz, and hopefully get some tricks and tips from you guys and what you've seen, and likewise on the other end, if you have any insights to what we're up to, we'd love to hear it.
Well, perfect. So, looking over and getting to know you a little bit prior to the show, one thing that really jumped out at me that I wanted to kind of get into is you've been over at Karl Malone Ford, correct, for 6 years, right?
Right.
So it looks like you have a very interesting journey. Talk with me a little bit about your journey over there at Karl Malone.
Yeah, sure. So we have, the group has about 15 stores now. So I was as a sales guy, 2019 at our Draper Toyota store, spent a couple years there, and then really moved over into sales manager and used car manager up at our Park City Ford store when we acquired it out in 2022, beginning of 2022. And so we've just been rocking and rolling that store. We bought it when it was doing it's just a little lazy store doing like 12 units a month. It took us about 2 years to get that up to a 127, and we kind of hover between that 100, 110, trying to get to that 150. So that's kind of the journey there. Sales guy over to sales manager, used car manager. We have we stock probably about $3 million in used cars. So we have a little bit of a higher average cost per unit up there at Park City. A little bit of Raptor land, we like to call it. So, but yeah, that's a little bit of my journey there and what I'm up to now.
Well, one of the other things I want to know, and I'm sure Shawn wants to jump in here as well, is with Karl Malone, the group, the special, the dealership, what makes you guys unique in your market? What makes you special outside of, being owned by the mailman who's got a big history and a big legacy there in Utah? What makes, in your eyes, Karl Malone store, the Ford store, the group, kind of unique to the market?
Sure. So I think, customer centric first, doing whatever it takes. You can't replace the customer, but you can replace the vehicle, so having that mentality that you're there for customer service first. And then I would say second would be our process. We do have roots from the old Larry H. Miller dealerships back in the early 2000s. So we've kept that sales process kind of through those decades, which has really been helped us with process. Acquiring that Ford store from the Crandalls in 2022, we really just instilled our process and had our managers come in and manage by the hour, and boom, we have a lot of happy customers coming back to us.
Perfect. Shawn, anything you want to know about the store, about the group? I know we've heard about Karl Malone Ford, or Karl Malone Automotive Group, but I'm sure you want to jump in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know me. I mean, similar to Jason and yourself, Matt, been doing this for quite a while, and started off washing cars in the service department 23 years ago. It was supposed, I got into the automotive industry by accident. I don't know if Jason, if for you was it the same thing for you?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. No one ever really goes to school and plans like, hey, I want to go work at a dealership, right? So I kind of, scurrying underfoot, started washing cars. It obviously wasn't a career move, but, integrity, grit, hard work, ownership and accountability, all kind of, in my ascent led me to, promotions every couple of months or every year, if you will. So start off on the service side. So for anybody watching, because, Matt and I, we set out to do this show with regards to, we wanted to do something different. We wanted actionable stuff. We didn't want to hide behind the camera. We didn't want to hide behind, any kind of like a podcast, or we didn't want the pageantry. We wanted it raw. So for anybody watching, because you have a pretty impressive trajectory as well, career. So, you went from sales rep to internet manager and now GSM, correct?
Yeah.
If you could speak to anybody even watching to give them, the slightest little bit of courage, hope, optimism with regards to, like, oh man, I'm just a car washer. Like, yeah, but that's your current situation. What would you recommend to anybody with regards to how do you go from one department to the other? Like, what was your main area of focus? Was it discipline? Was it accountability, et cetera? What was that like?
Yeah, thanks, Shawn. Appreciate that and sharing your background. I think what you mentioned, grit, when you want it, you show your grit and your passion for it. Right now, we're going through a situation where one of my reps, he's been a high-performing rep now, getting into his third year, and he's frustrated that he hasn't been promoted.
Yep.
And really, the first thing that you need to do when you're looking to move up the ranks is you got to let your superiors know that you have your goals, your intentions, that you want to move up and that you believe in yourself, and they should too. So I would say first thing, let your bosses, let your superiors and your leaders know what you want to do. Whether you're washing cars and you say, hey, give me a shot at sales, or whether you're in sales and you know what, you need to be next man up forever. So this one rep, he's a top performer, but he hasn't really mingled and shared that that drive or that goal. So we're working on that with him, and I think he should be next man up.
And you bring up such a good point. Sorry, Matt, but you bring up such a good point, because there's going to be a lot of people watching this that are from different, broad spectrums, BDC agents all the way to GSMs or what have you, because they just want information. So, but what you said is so dangerously accurate, because I spend my time coaching. I'm not really a trainer. I'm more of a coach. So we're kind of completely in line with each other with regards to that mentality. And, and you nailed it. Like, whatever you're currently doing is the opportunity. And what you said, like, hey, listen, I would like to maybe explore this promotion or this position, but it's really important to also not just ask, like, hey, listen, I'd like to be promoted, but to sit down with your manager and ask, I don't know, hypothetically, I want to be a service manager. So what behaviors or what attributes do I need to develop over the next couple of months to have, a shot at that position? So asking definitely is one thing, but also informing yourself on what talents, what behaviors do we need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
It's interesting you say that, because, just to give you my background as well, Jason, just to give you a deeper dive into me, I come to this spot today from a very different angle than you guys. So I've been in the automotive industry for about 15 years, but most of my time was on the vendor side. And like you, I started off as a rep. I was always a top performing, high performing sales rep in that. I caught wildfire at a organization called Dealer Fire, organically grew from an entry-level field rep to the vice president of sales within 3 years, had 4 promotions in 3 years, and then elevated that to kind of help build and run a lot of the vendors that, the dealership world knows today. Now, I left the vendor space to create a business around consulting, because my passion was always coaching and development of sales reps. And so why Shawn and I get along so well is because both our passion is not to ever be viewed as a manager, but to be viewed as a coach. And the thing I enjoy the most is when I look at my legacy doesn't include what I've done myself, but what I've left behind. And so what I'm really excited about is the people I've had an opportunity to grow. And so when we talk about this growth factor of kind of mentoring and teaching somebody where to go in their life, the big thing I always try to communicate to younger salespeople who are hungry to grow is, first off, having a mission above what you're doing today is always the number one reason why you're going to be able to go through those tough days. And we all know the car business is not easy. And if you don't have a bigger mission, you tend to kind of run into a lot more walls. But that idea of doing the job you want, not the job you have, essentially dressing like the position you want, not in the one that you are, is, I think, great. And having somebody who wants to be promoted and is frustrated they're not promoted, is a fantastic guy to have on your team. So right now, what are you doing with that guy? A guy that's voicing his opinion, saying, I want to be more, I'm hungry for more. What is the plan around that guy? Because that's a guy that is a great guy to work with, in my opinion.
Sure. You never know when your time, that your opportunity is going to, have you seize the day and take that spot. We just had a position open up, general manager position. One of our GMs got promoted at a store, and it sent everybody scurrying. What's going to happen? And real quickly, they made the GSM the GM. They took the sales manager and put him over as GSM, and a guy that worked at our store that transferred over in sales got his opportunity to be on the desk. And again, we were talking with that sales rep that we have at our store, and we're like, hey, just look what happened. So it's next man up. We have such a big group and opportunity. Your time's going to come. So just kind of keep overcome that frustration that he currently has, and just give him some hope for gain and keep him producing, because you get a top performer that's disgruntled. We all know how that works. They start recruiting and they can be over there in the corner. You don't want that. So yeah, to keep them hopeful, we have a great group with some great trajectory for a lot of guys. So just staying ready.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Talking about being undeniable. So when that role does open up, they don't ever have to look anywhere else but to you, because you already have checked all of those boxes of what they would look in that. But I tell you one thing I'm super impressed by your organization by is the fact that when there was a vacancy, that you didn't ever have to go look outside of your that you had that built from within organization that believes in that. I mean, for me, back when I would be looking at potentially taking on a new venture, and I would meet with the company and they'd be talking with me about a head of sales or a vice president of sales or an executive level role, I would always question, why would you be looking at me, somebody outside of your organization? Why are you not able to develop that talent internally? And that's always been a tough challenge for companies to understand, which is the best companies are the ones that create that visual pathway for their leadership to be able to be grown and established in that aspect. So I'm excited for you guys in that sense, because that's a place that you're going to be able to continue to attract very talented entry-level people when they can see that growth coming in organically. Shawn, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just start this. We're going to go in hot, because I really have a question for you, Jason. I spend my time on a plane. I spend my time basically all over North America coaching and building BDCs, but revenue generating BDCs, not call center type BDCs. But you hit the nail on the head, and because you are our guest, we want to give you the most talk time and screen time and what have you. So Cox Automotive, and let's take your dealership out of it. Let's just talk globally, because the idea is to provide information and to get your point of view. Cox Automotive a couple of years ago did a study, and basically they came up after their study. Essentially, in the automotive industry, one of the biggest problems that I've seen over 23 years has been the onboarding process, as well as the turnover, or as we call it, churn. So Cox Automotive actually did a legitimate study. This is about 2 years ago. And the churn ratio in the automotive industry is 47%, when we're looking at a national average of about 20%. So people that work at like a Walmart or Fortune 500 companies. So the distinction between the two, I mean, it's astronomical. So when we look into that 47% and look at the sales floor, that 47% globally in the car industry, when we look into it from the sales perspective, climbs all the way to 77%. So when you just basically spoke about, there was a lot of movement, the service manager became, I believe you said a GSM and all that kind of stuff. What does your establishment do to ensure the right person at the right place, as opposed to just filling up a position? What's the secret sauce for you guys?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is a spot that we have some opportunity to better onboard really all of our employees. But I would say during the interview process, it's important that we have a couple of the leadership interview the candidate and make sure that we several of us pass off on it. And then from there, I've kind of taken on the role on the sales end to, get everything onboarded. One thing we do at our stores, we do a quick meet and greet with all of the departments with the candidate, with the new hire, and get them feeling comfortable. I could only imagine getting into the dealership world, how intimidating, Shawn, when we first got in there, how intimidating it seems so huge. So
Yeah.
being able to go and do some meet and greets and get them acquainted and get them assimilated and well known quickly is important. And then having them taste success quickly too. You got to we just had a veteran sales rep, 20-year rep, transfer from one of our stores. And even with him, we wanted to get him going, get him acquainted, just get him rolling and see some easy success to keep him rolling. So luckily, we've been able to bring him on board several weeks, and he's seeing some quick success. So that's important. But yeah, that churn, that 77% sales churn.
That's on the sales floor. I just want to be very specific for anybody looking. These are real numbers. You could look it up. It's 47% throughout the dealership, but 77 when we're talking about sales. So if you could speak on either one of those, what do you guys do to mitigate, I guess, that number a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the meet and greet and bringing people on board, that helps. And then what you guys have talked about and touched on is a promotional path, one-on-ones with your sales consultants. But yeah, I can see a dog eat dog world in the dealership. 77% churn's awful. How do we make that better? We're supposed to do one-on-ones weekly. We probably honestly do them once a month. But that quick touch of weekly one-on-ones is important. In an environment where you're sitting down in a room, you can really listen to your rep versus a lot of times we're at their desk. Hey, where's your next deal coming from? How can I help? But pulling them in an office and one-on-one will help retain, I think. But yeah, I think that's been kind of the trajectory of the car business since I've been around in it.
Yeah.
5 is turnover. You try and keep your 80% going, and the 20% just kind of fall off.
Yeah, and not to be cynical, obviously. I mean, this is a great industry. I mean, look at all three of us, highly decorated, start off at the bottom. So, of course, this is not to be cynical, but we are, Matt and I set out to really put our finger on certain pain points, like, hey, let's talk about it. So yeah, definitely. But I also, like I said, not to be cynical, but I fundamentally believe, going into these dealerships and working with them, I need to also understand their reality. And the reality is, at the end of the day, contrary to many industries or other organizations, the automotive industry is governed on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
Like we don't do quarters. Like the Fortune 500, like, yeah, we'll catch up in the second quarter. Like, we're like, no, like if you miss your target 3 months in a row, you're gone, right? So we're governed by a month-to-month ecosystem, and I fundamentally believe that has also a lot to do, unfortunately, with, listen, we always need the cream of the crop because there's so many, measuring factors that could be affected if we lose the track,
That's a great point. You go into your dealership and talk fiscal year. It's probably not,
yeah. Like,
but yeah, that's a great point. When you're, I've spent some time as a vendor as well, and you have, your quarterly KPIs, and then in the dealership world, it's like, what are we gonna do about this third week of the month? We keep stumbling on this third week. What about the fourth week? So
yeah,
that would be something interesting if we could go to. If we had a store pilot, some quarterly goals, wouldn't that be cool? To have a quarterly pay plan. I wonder how that would work.
Let me ask.
I'll call you after.
Let me ask you this question, Jason, because I think a lot of what we're talking about on the retention side is definitely the profile of person that we onboard, but I think a lot of it is also the training and the coaching in those first 90 days where, that person's trying to figure out if this is the right spot for them. But before we get to the training side, which I'd love to hear Shawn's perspective on the best way to onboard somebody, but what is the profile, the ideal profile you look for when looking at the salesperson? Because for me, I've always probably gone very different than a lot of my peers. And my peers would always like to hire a resume. And me, I almost like to take a resume and throw it away. I would much rather hire a guy right out of college, young in his career, who's hungry to prove to himself and all of his peers that he is somebody who can make it, versus that guy who's been at 4 other dealerships and has been in the business for 20 years, because that guy doesn't necessarily align with the profile I do best with as a developer, as a coach, as somebody who looks as a mentor. I look for a certain profile. But for you, Jason, what is the profile you found that works the best for your group and for you as a leader?
Yeah, great question. Attracting talent to our business sometimes isn't easy. People don't understand it. 100% commission generally in dealership life scares some entry, into sales. But like you're saying, Matt, someone that brings the energy and is open, coachable, is important, and your work ethic. So work ethic, energy. Usually that is coming from the younger guys. I've had some interviews with some older candidates, and they want to come in part-time, kick around, sell a couple cars.
Yeah.
And when I explain, hey, this is like 50.
Do this thing passively, right? Like
I blew this old guy out so hard, so bad. He wanted to work part-time, and I said, well,
give him the shuttle driver position. The dealer trades.
Yeah, there we go. I should have had you there, Shawn. We could have filled the role there. I said, hey, we got 50, 60-hour weeks. We're pretty adamant about managing, by the hour, every hour. Our guys are having 18 car per average. This probably isn't the place for you, bro.
You know what? And Matt, that's a great question. Jason, to keep to the integrity, obviously, of the show, can you speak a little bit on, obviously, between the sales department and BDC is 2 different worlds, completely 2 different worlds. What do you look for? Can you speak a little bit on that? Like, what do you look for with regards to attributes or character traits with regards to when you're looking for BDC agents? Or I believe you don't have a manager. We could talk about that later. But when you're looking for BDC agents, what are you looking for exactly?
Sure. So we just, over the last year, we hired our first BDC agent. It's probably about a year ago. And we looked for energy on the phone, some phone experience. We think that, most of our sales and BDC positions, we think that, 3 to 5 years experience right now is kind of the right balance that we're looking for. But I'll tell you what, in my career, you guys have this expertise, and I'll definitely be looking for tips in the future and now from you guys. But I have not been able to integrate a BDC into my dealership operations really seamlessly ever. This young lady that became our BDC agent, we transitioned her into a warranty administration role, which she's doing really well at. But yeah, we had some growing pains with like you said, sales and BDC are 2 different worlds. How do you merge them? You guys have some experience, so I'd be open to some recommendations or ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I could talk on that, but I'll let Matt go first.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me share my experience. And so just so you know, Jason, I run an outsourced BDC, and I work with a lot of different stores on kind of supplements. So, my day is heavily about recruiting. My organization probably has about 50 to 60 people apply to work for me on a day-to-day basis. So I've got a whole recruiting department, and there's a couple of things that we look for. Number one, I look for people who have 3 characteristics that work well in my organization. So number one, I look for people who have thick skin. Because I'm such a coaching-based organization, and because the dealership world is such a high volume of turnover, thick skin is something that's required. I can't have somebody who's super sensitive, super emotional, and they can't deal with a high volume of heavy coaching and heavy rejection on the phone, right? So from both ends, both as a coach, I coach hard because I expect a lot, because the people I want are motivated to grow in an ideal world. But also, we all know BDC in any type of sales role like this, where there's a cold call outreach, is a lot of rejection, a lot of activity that doesn't result, and you need to have the ability to maintain confidence through a tough day. Number 2 characteristic I look for is student mentality. I look for somebody who is hungry to grow, is asking questions, and doesn't need to come in a finished product, but they want to be better today than they were yesterday and then the next day. And then the third attribute, which is probably the hardest to identify, but is self-awareness. If they know what they're good at and know what they're not good at, know how they come across, know how people view them, and they have a student mentality, those two things tend to work well, so they can go ask for help on the things they know they need help on. But if they're not very self-aware, they tend to be a little less able to understand what they need help on, and that student mentality, no matter how good it is, doesn't align. Now, in regards to characteristics for me, outside of those three personality traits, I tend to look for people who are less talented on the phone skills, more talented in the organizational skills. For me, the amount of customers we manage, the amount of leads we manage, the amount of moving parts throughout the day tend to be better managed by people that are able to manage a high volume of moving parts in structure and organization throughout the day. I think that the pitch side of it is something that can be taught. The pace, the work ethic is something that it is either aligned to what they already had or their motivation. And then I think the attitude side is the biggest difference, is how they can deal with the overall volume of rejection and the difficulty of this job. So for me, pitch, pace, and attitude are the three daily coaching mechanisms I use. It's either the words you say, how hard you work, or the mindset around the day. And then the three characteristics I look for in the recruiting process is thick skin, self-awareness, and the student mentality. Those are kind of what I look for in the recruiting process.
That's pretty awesome stuff. Matt, how do you, right off the get-go, how do you understand if someone has thick skin or not? How do you get that out of someone?
So fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a guy that is is organically who I am as it is. It's very hard for me to not be who I am. So I speak directly, I speak transparently, and I tell people this is what it's going to take. Now, you can sit here and lie to me and tell me you have thick skin. You can sit here and lie to me and tell me that you're not an emotional person or driven by emotions, but at the end of the day, this won't likely work out in this environment if you're that. So if you don't have it, we need to learn how to get it. But I also speak in a way that can be very intimidating to people who don't have that. And so it tends to weed people out pretty quickly when you're just transparent about who you're looking for, who you are as a leader, and the people who tend to thrive in that world. So there's some definitely questions that myself and my recruiting team will ask to try to uncover those things. But in the interview phase, people want a job. They tend to tell you what they think you want to hear, not necessarily what's real. So just being as direct and transparent and saying this is not an easy place to be, this is not a place for the weak. You have to have these things to thrive, and if you don't, we tend to weed you out pretty quickly. Shawn, what about you? So, I mean, you're on the other end. You definitely.
I'm on the other end. So my expertise really is really so essentially BDC Alchemy. That's the name of my company. So I worked 18 years under the rooftop for the largest dealer groups in Canada. During COVID, I decided, you know what, I'm taking a chance on me. I've built 7 successful BDCs. Let's just try this. So my area of expertise is building in-house internal BDCs. I'm not against outsourced. I think Matt and his team do an excellent job. As a matter of fact, he brought me in. You know, we're totally collaborating. So he made me a believer. But for myself, at the core, I don't build. I architect in-house BDCs. So the way I do that really, really quickly, if I could give you a bit of information. So you nailed it with the 3 years, Jason. You can ask me any question you want, but I'll just try and structure this from like point one. Point one, if you're even thinking about building an internal BDC, the first thing you need to do is absolutely dial in the job description. That's where we get it wrong immediately. You have to dial in the job description and take your time with it. What are you looking for? What are you trying to accomplish? Why do you even want an in-house BDC? So the question you should ask yourself, and this was taught to me by one of my coaches, changed my life. The question you should always ask yourself, what are we trying to solve for? What are we solving for? Because at the end of the day, Jason, Having a BDC is not the goal. The BDC should be the vehicle that gets you to the goal. Whether that's outsourced or out with Matt and his awesome team, or whether it's bringing it in-house. The BDC should be the vehicle that gets you to the goal. Great. So now, you've established we want to kind of bring it in-house. We'll outsource some of the stuff, no problem, because there's all kinds of different kinds of BDCs. There's like, you know what I mean? Hybrid BDCs. But specifically in-house, the first thing, dial in your job description. And I mean, dial it in, okay? The second thing you want to do is not build the BDC around a person. You have to build the BDC around a system. Once so the system, you have to first define it. Okay, why do I want a BDC? Okay, because my salespeople, I don't know, they're not really doing good on lead response time. Or, they'll call the lead once or twice and then they don't call it back. Okay, well then that's what we're solving for. Long-term follow-up, right? So you have to first define what you want your BDC to be. What is this thing going to be? And there's a broad spectrum of them. None of them are bad. They just, as long as they work in your ecosystem. Some people that I work with have a very Glengarry, Glen Ross approach. They just want to hammer away, and that's okay because it fits their ecosystem. Smaller, family-owned tend to be a little bit more white glove, and hey, listen, we want to nurture the leads, so that requires a different profile of person, right? So it's about, first of all, define your BDC. Number two, let's plan it. What is this thing going to be? How is it going to work? So the first thing, like I was saying before, don't build it around a person, build it around a system. Once you've done the system, now you go out and find the person to put inside of the system. The reason why I say that is because it's irrelevant whether you have two people, and I've managed personally, my biggest BDC prior to starting my business was 27 agents. So what happens is when you get dialed in on your process, regardless of who decides to leave, your process is already dialed in. It's not like your best person left and, oh my God, there goes 20 cars a month, right? So you dial in your process. So now, a couple of information I'm going to give you because this is tried and tested. What kind of a person do I need? So what I've seen, and you nailed it, and you gave me the idea to give you this information. What I have seen, obviously there's a slight variance, but let's talk about characteristics. What I have seen over the last 23 years is BDC agent, 0 to 3 years experience. If you go out and you're looking for a team leader and someone says, yeah, I worked at a BDC for 2 years, it's not that they wouldn't be able to be a team leader, it's that they wouldn't have the attributes or the business fortitude to understand the elements of the data, right? So 0 to 3 years, BDC agent. 3 to 5 years, team leader. 5 to 8 years, BDC manager. And 8 years plus, BDC director. And when I say BDC director, it's basically this person could basically run 14 stores because they have the system dialed in, the data is dialed in, the reporting is dialed in. They manage the data and they coach people at that level, right? So that's the other thing. So some of the attributes from the 0 to 3, as we were talking as a BDC agent, I typically, because I do a lot of hiring with my clients, or I should say my partners, they entrust me with it, which I'm so grateful for. So I do the interviews, they send me the resumes. I'm like, yep, call this person. Nope, don't call this person. So some of the things that I look for with regards to in-house long-term creativity. They need to have some, because it's really, I mean, think about it. We're asking them to sit down in a chair all day and do 110 phone calls or tasks or whatever you call it. That would drive anybody nuts, right? So creativity is a must. Integrity, right? Understanding that if I book a bad appointment, there's an up system on the sales floor. So the more appointments that I don't book, it's going to cause, chaos between myself and the salesperson. Someone that has obviously your attitude, your attitude is everything. And then somebody that's in it long term, someone that buys into the vision, right? And how do you do all that when you put it all together? How do you know if this person meets these attributes? After the job description, your interview questions should be directly in line with the problem you're trying to solve.
Cool.
That's why I said start with that question. What problem are we solving for? So your interview questions need to be specifically dialed into that person in front of you. By asking questions, what would you and how would you? Just what and how questions. That's all you need. Forget about the where do you see yourself in 5 years. You know, like they're here for a BDC agent position, and we're already, yeah, well, you could be a sales manager in 4 years. Okay, well, let's set the tone,
Yeah.
and let's put realistic situations from your store right now. Like, what would you do if? And if they answer correctly, then you're like, okay, well, I need this person because they're going to solve for the thing. So those are a couple of things I would recommend.
Appreciate that in-depth analysis, man. I took some good notes there to bring back to the team, and we'll be following up with you guys after too, see if you can continue giving us some advice. That's pretty awesome that you've had experience with 27 agents, an operation that has that many moving parts. Pretty sweet.
Over 7 stores.
Wow. So I should be able to figure out, a store or two.
Well, if you can't, that's why people like Matt and I exist, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're car guys that became vendors, and I think that's where the bread and butter is. And I won't speak for Matt, but I mean, I love this guy, and I am just so passionate about what I do, and I remember this industry. I mean, we do 60, 70 hours a week. You know, I was a service manager. I was used car sales. I was a porter. I was a service advisor. I was a jockey. I washed cars. Like, how many soccer games did we miss? Because we're always at the dealership. You know, like, this industry is quite paradoxical because it's given us so much, but it's also taken so much as well. So I always told myself I wanted to leave this industry at some point by giving back what I've learned. I mean, it has to be for something, right? So, but, well, Matt just escaped us for a millisecond, but let me ask, do you have any questions? Can you talk about maybe a little bit about your BDC and like, what are some of the success metrics? Let's shift gears a little bit. Like, I'm sure you guys are having success. Can you talk about that?
That's questions for me, Shawn?
Yeah, Jason, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Come on.
BDC, we have about 90-minute BDC here at the store.
You have a 90-minute BDC?
Yeah, so like...
What does that mean? I never heard that before. What does that mean?
Yeah, so...
They have 90 minutes to book an appointment or they're gone. 48% turnover.
So it's just a 90-day focus.
Okay, 90 day, okay.
It's 90-minute of focused follow-up time that you block out. Sometimes we'll split it into a 45-minute and a 45-minute and do like a power blast. But we do that on the floor. We have a little bit of a smaller dealership, so a lot of times when we're outbound dialing, it creates some good energy, and so that's pretty cool that we have that on the floor. But there's a lot of uncovered fruit with BDC follow-up of different things that we can do. Like we have an auto alert tool. I'm sure you guys are familiar with auto alert. I'm sure it'd be nice to have a BDC.
Shout out to Bert at Auto Alert, by the way, if he's watching.
There we go. But yeah, it'd be great to have an agent specifically for your auto alert, just nurturing. That's a little bit more white glove, So I see that there's a lot of strategies. I just haven't been able to figure it out, but maybe I'm in touch with you guys for good reasons. So, but yeah,
Matt,
90-minute blasts, and our guys, we try and do 50 calls. 30 texts, and about that in emails, maybe 20 emails, so per day.
So I know when we kind of spoke before the podcast, there was a couple things that we spoke about, and some of the indications you gave is that you felt comfortable with the overall speed of lead process, which I know is probably one of the most important things I talk with my team about, is how fast do we get to the leads. Another thing you said is I think that the follow-up process through phone, email, and text is pretty strong. And then the overall pitch that is used is pretty strong. So we can double-click on those things. But you also said a couple things that maybe you would want a little bit of help with. But before we go off of some of the help side, let's talk a little bit more on the good side. So When you talk about speed, in your eyes, as you define what is a good speed and why you feel like that's something you're good at, talk with us through why it's good, what is good, and how do you get something that is good.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So we do a pretty good job at driving leads. We have a couple different solutions that we use for CRM. We have Podium, which is a little bit quicker of a instant response. We respond less than a minute. I was just looking at our stats yesterday, so we have quicker than our response times, less than a minute on those leads. As far as Dealer Socket, that's our CRM that we use. Our average response time there between a manager seeing the lead, assigning it, and getting it responded to is probably 6 minutes, 7, but less than 10.
Okay.
And then our guys do a pretty good job of that first outbound to 3 days, and then that's when we're micromanaging. Hey, what's your day 7 look like? What's your day 10? God forbid you call on 45 days, So that's kind of what that looks like.
So I'll give you an idea for us. So, I currently manage a group that has over 26 stores. They also use Dealer Sock, so very familiar with the overall process of using that CRM. I would tell you one of the biggest things we did to increase results at that store, and we increased results by about, I think, 13% set rate increase within the first 90 days, just simply off of driving that lead response time down. So for us, we're able to typically stop the clock in less than 45 seconds, and we're able to have the first outreach done inside of a minute and a half on average. So our outreach cadence, just so you know, Jason, with what we do is we do an initial immediate text that goes out, and then we immediately follow that text with a call. That's something we've adjusted in our cadence that allowed us to have a better connection rate, which is we alerted the customer who we are. So when they see that unknown number, they're attaching it to our overall process. On day 1, we make 3 calls, 1 text, 1 email. That's going to happen with 2 hours separation apart. So those adjustments on day 1 has increased our results pretty drastically on our connection rate and able to get our set rate on that. Because to your point, some statistics, Shawn can probably speak to the statistics a lot better than I, but our overall philosophy is that if we're unable to get a connection inside of 5 minutes, I think 65% of those customers are gone. And yes, you can do all of the follow-up you want to, but if you're not actually connecting in under 5 minutes to that customer, the likelihood of you getting that customer is gone. Because you got to know, I mean, they put a review in on, they put a lead in on Car Gurus. They didn't just submit a lead on your car. They submitted a lead on 20 other cars and 5 other dealerships in the area, because most customers are not married to a car. They're married to a situation, right? So that's one thing I would say that we would do. And now in regards to the overall follow-up, and I know part of what you want to do was the volume of follow-up, we do in the first 6 days, 13 calls, 6 texts, 6 emails in the first 6 days. We then back off a little bit, but we do a follow-up on day 10, 15, 30, 45, 60, 90, and 180 is a long-term follow-up process that we do for anything that's uncontacted. Obviously, once we've contacted, we accelerate the volume of activity in that regards. Because we're not an in-dealership one, we integrate in with the store, so we're working integrally with the store to talk about numbers, trade-ins, credit approvals, and stuff of that nature. Our whole aim is to make connection and get the customer on the line. And when we can set the appointment, obviously we do, but a lot of times we integrate in with the store who wants to be able to kind of go through the numbers in that regard. So we have an integral commitment. I don't know what
Matt, your
Shawn,
volume, buddy.
Add to what we
Matt,
do from an outsource
your
that
microphone.
might be different.
There you go.
When you're doing it in.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you absolutely nailed it, man. This is why I love you, dude. So you're seeing, Jason, the broad spectrum. So is an in-house BDC better than out-house or outsource? What? The answer is neither yes, neither no. It depends on your ecosystem. It depends where you need help. Like, do you need maybe them to take over? Do you want them to do first touch? Do you want them to do third, fourth, fifth touch? Are you looking to bring everything in house, et cetera, et cetera? So these are elements, that me and Matt, we're two different BDC people, but as you notice, we're not at war with each other, because it's not all ecosystems need an in-house BDC, and not all ecosystems need an outsource. So from an in-house perspective, I have a question for you. So as I said before, because I'm very pragmatic, because like I said, I'm architecting, I'm building BDCs along with the dealership from inside. It's not me just coming in going, okay, let's do this. No, I need to better understand. So I ask you guys and I challenge you questions and we work together. So that first question, what problem are we solving for, is a great question for what we spoke to. The second question that I'm going to give you with regards to what we're talking about is, so we're talking about Podium stopping the clock in 1 minute, and we're talking about Dealer Socket stopping the clock with your team, which is awesome, by the way, 6 minutes, right? Yeah. Great. What has that produced? Is the idea, and this is, I'm not trying to be adversarial, but these are questions to ask and it will guide you. The question to ask is, are we looking to stop the clock as fast as possible, or are we looking to actually contact the person?
We're actually looking to contact the person with studying and analyzing the lead as fast as we can.
Beautiful. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, but I'll give you the answer, but I just want to kind of get an idea, because I'm learning from you too, Jason, so I really appreciate your vulnerability. Do you know what the industry standard contact ratio is?
On first leads?
Yes, and a lead that just comes in, a lead just came in, we picked up the phone, and the other person actually responded. Not stopping the clock, but an actual...
I'll make a guess.
Yeah.
I might be a little optimistic at 30%.
Dude, it's 35, very close. It's 35%.
Okay.
It's 35%. So exactly what Matt said before I even opened my mouth, 65% of the people are going to be gone anyway, right? So when you need to structure your system, here we are back again with the word system, you need to structure your system or your cadence around that 35%. Make your BDC agents understand that not to lose hope. More 70% of the time, they will not answer. So yes, we need to text. That cadence that Matt gave, this is why to some people, it may sound super aggressive, but we are just governed by the 35%. So Matt and his team does an incredible job. So at your level, if your team is stopping the clock, I seldomly, correct me if I'm wrong, but seldomly have I ever seen a salesperson sit down and send 2 texts and 3 phone calls on day one. But what we need to intrinsically understand is, because we're governed by that number, that's actually exactly what's required. So if you're not in a position, or people listening are not in a position to do that, well then yes, 100%. Matt and outfits like Matt are absolutely the way to go, right? If you're bringing it in-house, well, that's a whole bowl of soup, because now you have to have adequate staffing levels, etc. So that contact ratio is 35%. Now, after that 35, the booking percentage. Do you know what an industry standard booking percentage is?
I don't.
25%. On the higher end, 30, 35 on the higher ends. But at 25%, 1 out of 4, you're relatively doing a good job. So the reason, 2 seconds, man, I'm going to land the plane, but those 2 little numbers are where I would start if I were you. Don't look at the aperture too much. Just start out with understanding that 35% is a contact ratio, guys. That's why we need to be on it. That's how you sell volume-based. You're not, when you lead with the iron fist, it's like, okay, I want you guys to send texts. I want you guys to send videos. I want you, but without them understanding, they're going to look at it as like, dude, I'm 40, 50, or in this case, the guy that came to you, 65 years old. Like, don't tell me what to do. No, we have to do it, and this is why. And then how do you know if they're doing it instead of, having those 90-minute blitzes? That's great. but why not just structure it around 25% booking? If they're not at 25% booking, any number of leads that you send them, they're not doing the job. So that's where
25% booking, you're talking about 1 out of 4 leads setting.
1 out of 4 all the way up. So if you got 100 leads and you didn't book 25 appointments, they're burning leads, man.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just keep it simple at first, and then we scale to 30, 35, but just stick with the 25%. Now you know what you did, Jason? You gave yourself bandwidth. You don't have to check calls. You don't have to, okay, guys, phone blitz time, like get on the phones. Like, look, whoever's not at 25, they're clearly not doing the calls. They're not following the process. Yeah. So out of like, I don't know, maybe 10 people, if 3 people are not 25, well, hey, guess what? Now you only have to manage 3 people, not all 10.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Matt?
Yeah, and so I wasn't actually looking for you to land the plane. I was actually digging in to make sure I understand.
Sorry, let's go back up. Pull up.
You said, just to clarify, 35% connection rate on all leads, 25% booking rate. I've always looked at the numbers slightly different, but it's the same outcome. And I've always said 35% connection rate and then 75% of the connections resulting into a set.
Sure.
Yeah, I like to.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah.
Because sometimes people might not be getting enough connections, and the solve of the connections might be that speed thing, but somebody else might be getting a ton of connections, even more because they're really fast, but they suck on the phone, so their connection to set rate is lower. So you can look at it at a 25% of lead, but I like to look at it as 35% of the leads connected and then 75% of those connections result there. So it's just how analytical do you want to get? How deep do you want to look? Because there are different things to coach based off of those different metrics. But I think that those numbers, I never heard the 25% set rate number, but it makes total sense. And we kind of get to the same result.
We get to the same result, correct.
Level of metrics that we're looking at.
Yeah. And I think, Matt, so we don't overwhelm Jason, but which is super interesting. If you see, we get to the same result. However, my experience, and Matt has way more experience than me on outsourced and, how it works because, the aperture is a little bit different. My focus is in-house, right? So I wouldn't have anywhere close to the data that Matt has, that he can come up with that metric. Thank you, Matt. Actually, I just learned something today. But internally, Jason, obviously we could play around with that number over time. But the idea when you're first starting, keep it simple and set a baseline. Just set a baseline. Hey, guys, look, as of today, 25% is what we're looking for. Now, that 25%, you can manage it daily. Like, you can manage it daily. So like, hey, Shawn, you got, 10 leads yesterday. How many did you book? Well, I booked 1. Okay, that's not 25. Let's go and look at what you did. Yeah. You could do it daily, you could do it weekly, and you could do month to date. Like that 25 is not a moving target. Yeah. You like after 3 days, go into the DMS, pull out your booking report from Monday to Wednesday, hit, whatever, generate, and just look for 25 all the way down or more. And whoever's not at 25, hey guys, let's deep dive into your stuff.
Cool.
Another thing you had mentioned and wanted to talk about, Jason, was the show rate. So I'll kind of maybe ask the same questions that Shawn asked around what you like. So in your mind, your show rate could be higher, but what do you think the industry standard is for show rate? Just to determine whether you guys might be at pace. You might even be above pace. But what do you think the industry standard is, and what should you be looking to have?
Yeah, so I think industry standard's probably 40 or 50%. You probably want to really strive for that 80%.
Okay. What do you guys do to effectively, like, what are your thought processes? Say, here's what we do when we get a yes on an appointment to increase the potential of that customer showing.
Sure. I think you got that little check mark on the dealer socket appointment request for a text. I think that's important that they can be able to confirm over text, as well as we have a policy it's just part of our process. When you set an appointment, you go to the desk. Desk gives a quick call, says, hey, just bumped into Dre. Appreciate you spending some time. will you do me a favor when you get here? Just ask to meet me. We'd like to just put a friendly face to the name and make sure it's simple for you, something like that. And so we do that on our appointments. Our show rate's probably 65%. When I was speaking with Natalia and she was asking a couple pain points, one thing I wanted to bring up to you guys is there's so much noise for a consumer this day and age. You brought up creativity to grab that appointment is so important these days, but it's so tough to get people to want to come into the store versus, oh, I just want to do the Carvana way. I want a trade number over the phone. I'll send you a couple pictures. I'm bringing my own financing and I'm sitting on the couch and I want a deal, versus having my guys give enough hope and enough creativity why to come into the store.
So I'll speak to my experience, and then once again, Shawn, who's far more the expert on this than I, can speak to his. So for us, I would tell you the number, an analytical number I go off of good or bad, is 65% as well. So if you're above a 65% on your appointments to show, then you're actually doing right there where you should be. Obviously, there's room for us to improve that. Now, one of the metrics that probably my most important metric to increase show rate, and I didn't hear you talk about it, Jason, but it's the speed of the appointment. So same day appointments are going to show far better than second day, third day. So the time that goes in between that can determine the show rate drastically. So for me, I don't allow my BDC reps to schedule an appointment that I even count as an appointment if it's more than 72 hours away. I can still let them set an expectation, but I don't let them set it in the appointment in there unless it's inside of 72 hours. One of the other things one of my dealerships does that is, man, it's been such an eye-opening thing, is they do a VIP confirmation. So similar to the field of what you just mentioned, I just bumped into Dre. He said you might come in. When you come in, ask for me. They do one step further on that. And when this process is executed, more than 90% of the customers show up, okay? And it's a warm transfer, because when the customer gets off the line, good luck getting them back on the line. So keeping them on the line and doing the warm transfer to the desk, where the desk does a VIP confirmation, and that VIP confirmation is executing the art of reciprocation. And we want to make something special for you. We do something special for all of our customers. We don't want to just give you a coffee from our coffee machine on the floor or give you one of our bottles of water. We want to actually go out of our way to make you feel special. So we're going to run to Starbucks for you and get you a specialty drink order. We're going to go to Jamba Juice and get you a smoothie. We want to do something exceptional for you to show you that you are special for us. Now, when they give a drink order, Jason, they show up 90% of the time. When they decline the drink order, it's an objection overcoming a machine. Because if they're unwilling to have you go out of your way to do something nice for them, are they really sold on coming in? And that's your opportunity for you as a desk manager or a manager in the store to now qualify that customer a little bit more and make sure they've got the hook to actually come in. So that is a process that we track heavily. When confirmed with a VIP, 90% show rate. When unconfirmed, it's less than a 50% show rate. Combining the two, over 65% show rate is the standard we look for of a store that's being ran successfully.
Wow, that's great.
Boom. For my buy-in, again, internal perspective, love it, Matt. Again, I'm taking notes like I'm learning from this guy as we go, so thank you so much. Internal perspective, hands down, 100%, Matt. I'm in your camp. What I've known over the last 23 years, 65% is your minimum show percentage you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So, and when you said 50 before, and now we're talking about coaching and leadership and all that other stuff, which I would love to talk to you on, but you know, the disparity between 50 and going to 80 would completely overwhelm and discourage anybody. I mean, that behavior, it would take almost a year to like really iron out process. So if you're at 65%, good job. However, the idea, because we're always in the hot seat, right? Especially as a service manager or sales manager, we're always in a hot seat. What are the behaviors to go from 65 to 80? Yeah. And that's really where my specialty is, because what you're currently doing is giving you what you currently have. And if you're at 65%, it's great. But how do we go to 80? You cannot solve your current problems at the same level of thinking that created them in the first place. Now, what I mean that is you can't keep doing what you're doing right now and get to 80. Like, oh, we need more leads. Yeah, maybe more leads will do that. But more times than not, it can also have an adverse effect and get you from 65 to 60. And then you'll be pulling your hair out and look like me with no hair left, right? So, couple of things I want to, like, tangible, actionable items I want to give you. First of all, 65% is what you're looking for. That's your baseline. Cool? You're there. Lovely. How do we get to 80? First things first, by understanding that, and this is a stupid number, every lead, apparently statistically, but I'm going to round it up, but every lead that we get, that person has been shopping 2.6 dealers. I don't know how you get 0.6 of a dealer, so let's just call it 3, right? So you're not necessarily only up against stopping the clock and the 35% connection and the booking. You're up against 2 other people, BDCs or whatever their setup is, that's going to be different than yours. And if they got it dialed in, even if you talk to me and book an appointment and an hour later, ABC Motors calls me and that person's better, I'm going there.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the first thing that we need to do on the phone is establish 2 things. And I don't want to go too deep into it, but is this an in-market shopper? Or has this shopper shown purchase intent? Right? Because your sales manager, who's I'm sure doing a good job, calling back, or I think you mentioned a VIP, or they're like, hey, but if they have to do that for every single appointment, that's a lot of bandwidth, right? So I fundamentally believe to increase your show percentage, this is what I coach all the time. I'm going to try and keep it simple. 2 things. Number 1, your people, whether it's internal BDC, whether it's a salesperson, I don't care who it is, they need to create an emotional deposit. Buying a vehicle is an emotional experience. So let's stop, and I'm going to say this very loudly, let's stop leading with the, hey, do you want to come in for a test drive? If I'm 47 years old, I don't know about you, Matt, I've driven at least 22 cars in my life since I've been 16. Unless your car flies in the air or has a super turbo on the back, I don't need to test drive your vehicle. Does it have 4 wheels and a steering wheel? Yes. Well, then I'm going to need a little bit more from you. So I think leading, our salespeople, unfortunately, are governed by that. So I think by leading with the, using the test drive as your ace in a sleeve is terrible. As a matter of fact, when I'm coaching, when we actually contact the person at 35%, this is why I'm so dialed in on this. When you actually do contact that person, it is about creating an emotional experience. So now what are we talking about? Qualifying questions, most important. And the qualifying questions should be set in and around establishing, is this an in-market shopper? Meaning, did they just start the shopping and they have to go and visit 2 or 3 other places? Yes. Well, then give them some space to breathe. Give them information. Or is this a customer that's shown purchase intent? Hey, I'm getting an insurance check. I need to buy a car this week. Okay, great. Come in right now, right? Or it'll be in the lead. So qualifying questions, I'll give you a couple of them right now that you could take back to your team. Number 1, that first question. Hey, Jason, how are you? Shawn from ABC Motors. I'm calling you with regards to your inquiry, blah, 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 blah. My first question would be, and let's just role play real quick. Do you have to buy this vehicle today?
No.
Great. When are you looking to purchase the vehicle?
Probably within the next week.
Wonderful. So we have a little bit of time, correct?
We do.
Excellent. Let me ask you, Jason, what exactly drew you to this vehicle? Then you're going to be, because my current vehicle right now, blah, 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 doesn't have back. You're literally going to be telling me, you're pitching yourself. Like, I'm not doing any work. I'm asking you the right emotional questions. Now you're going to say, well, my current vehicle right now doesn't have a backup camera. Oh, you mentioned it. So I'm going to be, well, Jason, that's pretty interesting. You mentioned your current vehicle. May I ask you what that vehicle is? It's a blah, 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 blah. Great. What's the mileage? Blah, 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 blah. Wonderful. Is that something you're looking to potentially use as collateral, or is that something you want to keep? I'm looking to keep it.
Yeah, keep it.
That's how you ask for a trade. The least trusted person on the planet statistically is a salesperson.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that when we're asking a customer, do you have a trade? They're not hearing what we're asking them. They're hearing, how much do you want to screw me over? Right? So we have to find another creative way to qualify our people.
Sure.
Right? So it's a completely different approach. That's how you go from 60 to 80. It's incremental growth, and it's changing slightly our approach. Because the growth that you seek, and this is not to be vindictive, I say this to all my clients, the growth that we seek currently resides in the areas being mismanaged.
Yeah.
You have everything you need to get to 80%, bud. It's just slight adjustments, little knock here, little knock there, and sharing information. And the qualifying questions, I'm telling you right now, that changed my career. The minute I started asking, do you have to buy this vehicle today? It sets the tone for how aggressive I should be, or should I pull back? Try those. I'm telling you right now, it's going to work. But 65%, you're doing great. Let's get you at 80, bud.
Hey, so are you sending us an invoice for all this coaching? Or Thanks, guys. This is awesome. I got a couple pages of notes here, so appreciate everyone, all your insights for sure.
Nice. Maybe you could give us a soundbite. How did you find the format or whatever? What could you say on it?
Yeah, sure. Just the whole show has been interactive. You guys have been helpful with all the insights, asking a couple questions about our dealership and group, and it looks like there might be some discussions we can have after the fact. But cool to put some minds together and just rap. Like you said, you guys just want to put it all on the table, and it's fun. It's fun geeking out about stats with other guys that care about it.
Yeah, we could do it all day. Well, Jason, I know it's your day off, and I know you, first off, appreciate you taking time in your busy schedule to meet with us and talk with us and us to get to know you. We look forward to getting to know you more. Anything that Shawn and or I can help you with coming out of this, by all means, let me know. And worst case scenario, you taught me a couple things, Shawn taught me a couple things, and hopefully our audience is the one that wins from this process. So I really appreciate you giving us time today. Any last words before we go?
I'm grateful to be able to spend some time with you guys. Appreciate your time. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and for me, on a last note, and it's because there's a negative stigma around consulting and coaching. I believe, like I've witnessed that and I felt it. Don't be shy to compare either. Like you don't have to have an indefinite, like, oh man, if I go with Matt, it's going to be this, or if I go with Shawn, I'm forced. No, weigh out the two. You have a discussion, and then you just figure out what works for you guys. And that's honestly what me and Matt are trying to do here, right? We're trying to bring everybody together, because at the end of the day, in order to create a customer experience, you